Today's guest is someone who built a career most people wouldn't even dream of, and she did it on her own terms. Rebecca Sigala started young, first in art galleries, then as a wedding photographer. But it was when she discovered boudoir photography that everything clicked. She found not only her creative niche, but a powerful mission, helping women see themselves as beautiful, powerful, and worthy, exactly as they are. Since then, Rebecca has coached thousands of women through photo shoots and workshops, empowering them to feel confident in their bodies and in their stories. In this episode, we talk about what it's like to work in a field that raises eyebrows, how she handles the critics, and why following your heart, even without a college degree, can be the smartest move you ever make. This one is raw, empowering, and completely unfiltered. I hope you enjoy. Hi, today I have with me Rebecca Sigala. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this conversation.
Me too. Can you start by telling us a bit about your background, where you come from, where you started, etc.?
Yeah, sure. I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I came to Israel right after high school and went to seminary. And I actually got married the year after. I was
Wow.
19 years old, right?
Did you guys meet here or
Just
you knew each other from before?
so we actually met, yeah, we met here in Israel in
Wow.
Sfat. And we went back to the States to get married. And then the following year in 2009, we just took a few duffel bags and backpacks on our back and we made Aliyah and we went to Sfat and then we lived in Jerusalem and we landed in Efrat where we are now.
Nice. That's a really great story. Um,
Yeah.
did you go to school here or what did those early years look like?
What did those early years look like? So when I when I grew up, Um, I grew up kind of like traditionally Jewish, culturally Jewish, and I was kind of on like a spiritual journey when I decided to come to Israel. And when I moved to Sfat, I think we kind of had this idea of this religious life that we wanted to live, very idealistic. And what? And young, very young, exactly. And so we were working in the art galleries, and we kind of just thought we'd probably be in Spot most of our life, have a bunch of kids. We had just like a very different vision of our lives than it is today. So those early years were very beautiful, simple. We were working in these art galleries. And then actually within a year or two, that's when my husband started his photography business. And I was doing the behind the scenes of it. So that's how everything kind of started.
Cool. Were you guys into photography before that or it just happened? How did that start?
So we both are creative people very naturally. When I was in high school, I was very into fashion and I actually got a scholarship from a competition to go to a like a fashion institute in Los Angeles. And that was the plan. That was the plan after high school that I was going to go to this fashion institute and maybe work in fashion marketing or fashion merchandising. And I decided that I wanted to take a year off and go to Israel. I didn't know that that would mean that I would not go to fashion school and end up living in Israel, but that's what happened. And I also had dreams of being like an interior designer or something like that. And my husband also is the same. When he was younger, he always had a camera with him and he was always taking pictures. And when we got married, I remember he was like, I want to use some of our wedding money and get a professional camera. And I was like, okay, sounds great. And he did. And that's kind of what he had to start the business. And it went naturally. He's self-taught. I'm self-taught and it grew very beautifully and naturally from the beginning.
That's amazing. That's really
Yeah.
great. Okay, so he's a wedding photographer. You're the trusty assistant. And how did that develop?
Yeah. So um we how did that develop? So I was doing a lot of the behind the scenes, like customer service, marketing, things like that. And there was a couple times when we started making like collaborations or test shoots to create creatively. And at some point I'm like, I want to get behind the camera. Like I want to create something from whatever we were doing at the time. And so he started showing me a few things and kind of taught me the basics of how the camera works. And from there, it was very, very natural. I just kind of showed up and practiced and did it. And eventually it became like second nature to me. And we began doing weddings together and portraits and bar mitzvahs and everything. We were a husband and wife team. We still are, but in a different capacity. And and yeah, it was so much fun, and that's just kind of how it developed. And then of course our roles expanded in the business, and we both were doing photography, and yeah, that's kind of how it came to be.
I love that. And how long did you guys work together?
So I mean, we've always worked together. We still work together to this day. It just has changed what we're actually doing. Um, we were kind of doing that for a couple of years before I came across something that's called boudoir photography, which is intimate portraits for women, lingerie, artistic nudity for everyday women who want to feel beautiful and love their bodies, feel empowered. And when I came across it, I kind of just thought, oh, this is like a fun experience. I would love to do it myself. Of course, I would love to create experiences like this for women. And I decided to set up a shoot for that. And it went so well that we were working together for a couple of years at that point. And then I decided to basically open a separate business that was specifically for boudoir photography. And then what we were doing was for many years, we did weddings and portraits alongside my boudoir photography business, which was kind of on the side. That was kind of how it was for like 7 years or so.
Uh-huh. I I'm fascinated by that whole concept, especially in Israel, which is kind of like a fairly religious place.
Yeah.
How did building that business go for you? Did you get any pushback? Did people feel uncomfortable?
Yes. Definitely. So when I opened the business, we were already living in a frat, which is a modern Orthodox. I don't know what people would want to label it as, but more Dati Lumi. And when I opened it, people at first were very excited. Like I was getting inquiries on my Facebook page, and some of my first clients were from my community, and it was really exciting. But then started to roll in some of the pushback, which was whispers on Shabbat and people asking me questions and also being very blunt, I guess, in and maybe even inappropriate at times, like, walking up to me like, this is what you do, and just kind of like saying very outlandish things about my work. And I also got phone calls from people in the community telling me that I should shut down my Facebook page, I shouldn't put this on social media, and comments on Facebook and things like that. So nothing crazy. It wasn't like I was kicked out of the tribe or anything like that, but definitely people having their thoughts and opinions about it.
And how did you handle that?
I think at first, it wasn't necessarily easy, but I just, from the very beginning, I remember one of the first sessions I had, and the woman, when she saw the images, she was like, I have never felt like a woman until this experience. And we were both just in tears. And it was one of the moments that made me realize that this was so much more powerful than just a photo shoot. So even though it hadn't evolved into what it is today, I was still I still had this just strong intuitive feeling that it was so holy and important and needed, and that the purpose of what I'm doing is so much greater than what anyone else might think about it. So it wasn't easy at the time because I wasn't as confident in myself or what I do as I am today. But I decided to just kind of grit and bear it. And very shortly after, like as I started growing my business and becoming more confident in myself, I rarely receive pushback anymore. Of course, there's comments here and there, but I think that I'm just so clear about what I do and see the deep transformation that my clients get. And that's also the way that I put it out in the world, that I think people either they understand it and they love it, or they don't, and I don't hear from them.
Right. Okay, well, that's great. That's great. I should
Yes.
just say, I have seen your work and it's beautiful. You
Thank
clearly have a lot of
you.
talent. I could see why you would be,
Aw.
a natural fit for this type of job. It really
You.
suits you. Um, how I'm just curious, how was it for your kids? Did they have any issues with that? Or were
So
they
they're
too young,
very
maybe?
young when I began it, like babies. And from the very beginning, I never hid it from them or anything like that. And I mean, of course, I didn't show them the
Right.
pictures, like that wouldn't be age appropriate. But I told them, I do photo shoots to help women feel beautiful. It was very simple. It's something that they always understood. The only times that it got tricky was when people said inappropriate things in front of them about my work.
Okay, good. So how long did you work as a boudoir photographer?
So that was like 7 years of wedding portraits, boudoir. And then when COVID hit, is that like about 5 years ago, 4 years
Yeah,
ago? Wow,
probably
that's
about five
crazy. I
years
mean,
ago.
this is my 11th year in business at this point. So I hope I'm getting all the math right. It might not be exact, but math is not my thing. um, but I, yeah, so I was doing it for 7 years. And then when COVID hit, my husband decided that he took like another job, which was something that we hadn't ever really done before. We were always entrepreneurs, but things obviously were slowing down with weddings and events and things like that. We couldn't do it. And so he decided to take a marketing position in the nonprofit world. And that
I
kind
should
of
have him
gave
on
me
this show.
time. What?
I should have him on this show.
Yeah, totally. Maybe we could have done it together, but anyway. So yeah, so at that time, it kind of gave me time for pause to think about what I really want to do, what I actually enjoy doing. And it was very clear to me that boudoir was my passion and that I did not want to do weddings or any other kind of photography. And so I decided at that point to hire a business coach. And it was during like the beginning of COVID, and doubled down on my own business while my husband had this full-time job, which was like a very rare, that had never happened before, and grow my business. And one of the things that we started exploring was what kind of impact I want to make and what I was actually doing. How was I actually helping my clients? It obviously wasn't just about photos, but it was about helping women fully embrace their bodies exactly as they are, feel empowered in their skin, feel radiant and confident, and not just for a sexy photo shoot, but for every aspect of their life, in their intimate relationships, parenting, their career, and me really seeing the ripple effects of what that body confidence gave them. And my business coach asked me, well, because I was thinking about a virtual course or something like that. Everyone's thinking about a virtual course. They want to, have that passive income or whatever, which for me, it's not passive at all. It's
Yeah.
something that I am very involved in. But she's like, well, why don't you do a photography course? And I'm like, I don't want to teach photography. Like that wasn't,
Right.
it was never really the point. Like it was the tool. It wasn't the actual results. And then we kind of explored more and then came to this idea of having a body positivity course. And it was so successful. Over 100 women joined. It was so much fun. And I realized that this was actually what I had been doing all along without realizing it. I'm coaching women to feel comfortable in their skin and taking those processes and making processes and like a framework for women from what I was already doing, but getting really specific about it, and then helping them do it in different capacities, because boudoir photography is one tool and I see it as one of the most powerful tools, but there's all these other tools that you can use as well. And so I began creating workshops and virtual courses and doing one-on-one coaching, which eventually led to a signature course that I began a little over 2 years ago, which is called The New Sexy. And it's a 12-week course for women to fully embrace their bodies and feel sexy in their skin exactly as they are. And I love that piece of my business. And then what I kind of did, it just felt like this missing piece for my boudoir photography, because for a long time I was like, this is so powerful and is helping women so much, but I want it to make it even greater impact on their lives. I don't want them to just look at these pictures and be like, oh yeah, I felt really beautiful that day, or she's a really good photographer, of course I look so good. I wanted them to really change the way they see themselves and have that be something that's long lasting. So what I do now is I combine the coaching and the boudoir photography for people to have healing experiences through this whole embodiment process.
Wow. That's a lot to unpack. So I want to kind of break it down a little bit. Starting from what you started with, which was the coaching. So
Yeah.
you said you went to coaching to develop the boudoir photography business. I've had
Mm-hmm.
a couple of guests on this podcast that have also mentioned that they've gone to coaching. And I think what I haven't touched so far, which I would love to hear from you, especially since you are also a coach now, is how did the coaching um, shape the way you moved forward? What were you hoping to get out of it? It sounds like what you were hoping to get out of it, which was a flourishing photography business, it totally changed into something else. So walk us through the process for people that are considering taking a coach for anything, whether it's business, whether it's career counseling, whether it's life coaching, marriage or relationship coaching. There's
Mm-hmm.
so many different types of coaching these days, and I keep
Yeah.
hearing that a lot of people are doing it, and I think a lot of people are still skeptical or unsure of
Of
what
coaching
is
in
that.
general.
Yeah, so maybe just walk us through your experience with coaching, how it worked for you, how you felt about it, how the process evolved, and you know if you thought it was worth it, what you got out of it.
Right now I'm actually doing a mini course specifically for entrepreneurs, and so much of what I'm giving over is about my experience of investing in myself, hiring coaches, believing in things that I didn't once believe. But when I decided to hire a coach, like I remember that first call, and I remember when she told me what the price was, and I was just like, you know, I actually didn't think it was crazy. Like, I think a lot of people are like, it's so overpriced and they have their thoughts about it. I understood, but it was just like almost as much as my rent. And it wasn't something that I could even think about affording. But when I went through this call with her, she asked me some really good questions. And then I had some time to like think about it and talk to my husband about it. And I just felt like this was now or never. This was such a perfect timing for me, where my husband was in, had this full-time job. So it wasn't like we weren't having any other income, even though we were still relying a bit on mine. And I could just go all in on myself and my business. And I remember that we actually didn't even have enough money in our bank account at the time to pay her. And I went to Jerusalem to like switch money from America and this and that, and in order to make this one first transfer so that I could start. So I took a huge risk. Like, I realized that, but I think so much of the decisions that I have made in my entire career has been based on my intuition, and I've always trusted that. and I help other women trust their own bodies and their own intuition now. And so I did it, and I'd say, I don't remember exactly which month I started, but within a couple months, I already had my investment back. I just like really went all in. I was like, I'm submitting to this coaching. I'm going to, just push myself beyond my limits of what I believe about myself and what's possible and go for it. And I just really felt like it was a now or never kind of situation. And it was very transformative. And I think one of the things that she said to me, I remember in the beginning, which I was actually just talking to a client about, was she said to me, stop treating your business like a hobby. And
Excellent advice.
I know. And I was so offended because I had been doing it for so many years, and it was everything to me. I cared about it so much. But I wasn't thinking of it as a separate entity from me, where this is a business that needs to be successful. It needs to create a profit. It needs to be something that isn't even for me. It's for my clients, right? And I was kind of seeing it as like, oh, well, if I feel in the mood, or if like, I'm in the zone, then I'll do things. And it wasn't so clear because I was very driven and very motivated, but there was something that she said about that just kind of made everything change, and me realizing that like I needed to invest in the business side of my business more, and my income multiplied.
I'm curious if you think that paying for coaching and investing in yourself makes you more motivated to do it. Like, I'm putting so much money into this, I have to get the results out of it. I can't just, freeload it to the end. Did you feel like I don't want to pay this, but if I'm already paying it, I should,
Yeah.
really
Well, I think
make it
that,
worth it,
I'm a
or no?
coach too. So what I do is a little bit different, but it's interesting how much it intersects, because so much of it is how we perceive ourselves. And I didn't realize that when I got into business coaching. So I'm like, oh wow, this is very connected to my own self-love healing journey and my relationship with money and my relationship with my mom, and like, what's happening here? I didn't realize I was stepping into therapy. But there's
Oh,
also
there's
a lot of
definitely a
strategy.
lot of therapy and coaching for sure.
Yeah, totally. And there's also a lot of strategy and practical implementation and things like that. Um, but yeah, I do. I think we have to invest in ourselves in order to see results. And that doesn't mean that every investment is the right one for you or every coach is the right one for you. I've had a really good experience with coaches. There was one that I didn't have a great experience with, but it was still an incredibly important lesson for me. But in general, yeah, I really do. I really think we need to invest in ourselves in order to see the results and care about it.
I totally agree. And I think that's what holds a lot of people back. There should be a coach for people who are thinking about coaches.
Totally.
So, okay,
Totally.
so you hired a business coach, you want to build your photography business, and how did it morph into, okay, now I'm a coach? How did that process
So,
work for you?
yeah, so when she kind of mentioned like this course, and we came up with this idea of having like a body image or a body positivity course, and then it was just so immediately successful, there were things that like I had to work through in terms of imposter syndrome and like, who am I to do this, and can I really call myself a coach? But I really worked on those beliefs. It wasn't just, oh, okay, like I'm trying to flip the belief and thinking about in my head. It was like something that I journaled about, I meditated on, I really became aware of when it came up in my sales conversations, or just anytime during the day, and just became aware of it and started to really shift those beliefs about myself. I really focused on the impact that I wanted to make and what transformation I was already giving my clients. Like it was the facts, it was what was already happening. And for me to abandon that would be wrong. It would be irresponsible. Like it really felt like this was my purpose. And so it was a little bit tricky at first for me to like step into that role. But I think it was the same type of thing as in the beginning. Like my purpose is greater than my fear. And I held on to that, and I held on to the transformation that I know that I have given my clients over and over again. I mean, I've been in this field now for over 11 years, worked with over 1,000 women.
Wow.
And it's absolutely incredible to see what this business it's almost, I see it almost as like this vessel for so much light and healing, and it's amazing to see.
That is really beautiful.
Yeah, I think there's certain people or things that like come in our paths and in our lives that are for sure meant to come to us, because that's kind of what shapes and guides, where we go next and how we perceive ourselves. Sometimes all it takes is someone being like, I believe in you. You can totally do this. I mean, I had people in the beginning telling me that I could never do boudoir photography in Israel. It would never be successful. People would never pay money for that. People would never pay, like, it's so funny to think about now. People
Right.
would never pay money for that. Get a real job. Like, I had so much of this brain chatter and other people's opinions running through my mind. And so, yeah, I think it was really important that I had someone that was like, no, you can do this. Like, they just reaffirmed the things that I wanted to believe about myself.
Great. And how was building the course? How long did it take, and was it hard? I
Mm-hmm.
think people look at these online courses and they're like, "Oh, somebody probably just wrote it over their coffee in the morning." And I don't think it's really like that. So maybe paint a picture of the
Yeah.
challenges and the process.
So I guess what I'll talk about is like my signature course, which I started 2 years ago. That was actually very interesting because the advice that I got was sell it and then create it. And it was a little scary to do, but it actually helped me so much, because when you sell something and you try to get really clear about the messaging and who you're bringing in, and you see who's responding and their objections and all of that, you learn so much about what women are thinking and what women need and how you can show up for them. So I sold it first. And when I got a group of, I think it was about 8 women, the first group, I decided to each week create the modules as we went along, because I was having these virtual coaching calls like once a week. And then I had office hours for additional coaching. And then they would go through these modules. And those modules I just created every single week. I remember those 12 weeks were like very intense, because I just like, I mean, there were things that I had before, because I did, workshops, and I had other courses before that. So I wasn't starting from scratch, but I was really building this program for the first time. And I love that I did that. Also because that would really suck to like make a whole course, try to sell it, and then not be successful in it. So it was really amazing in that sense. And then also amazing because I really like was in it with my clients at the time that I was creating it. And I think it's that much more powerful. It's still the same modules that I have today. I've changed a few things, updated a few things, but it's mostly exactly the same.
Cool. That is very brave, I have to say. I've helped a few people build some courses, and it's a lot of work. So doing it from week to week, I imagine was probably also extremely exhausting.
Yeah, it really was. But these women, the first group, I mean, every group, but there's something about the first group that was just so, so unique and special. And cared so deeply for, I care so deeply for all of my clients. And I was just so in it with them that it really inspired me. And it didn't feel like a burden, and it didn't feel like I couldn't do it. It was a lot of work and it was exhausting, but it wasn't to a point of burnout or resentment or anything like that.
That's amazing. Um, how is the coaching that you do now different from when you started it? How has it
Hmm.
evolved? Or maybe it
That's a
hasn't.
really good question. That's a really good question. So there's like a few things about my approach that I see is very unique to me and separate from others in the industry that are working specifically on body image. And I think in the beginning, I didn't have that approach solidified yet. There were certain things like, I'm trying to think of a few things that make my approach unique. So one of the things is that a lot of people will say, like, beauty is not important. What is important is what's on the inside. Right? But it's very common. It's like, don't think about that. Like, your soul is important. Like, your character traits are important, not how you look.
I have to say,
And
I do hear that, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. And if you don't feel confident in yourself, you can't be your best self, you know?
yeah, so many women are so fed up with like the beauty industry and diet culture and all these things that they're just like, I shouldn't be caring about this anymore. I'm just gonna resign to it. Like, I'm looking in the mirror and I don't like what I see, but like, it is what it is and it's not important. I'm a spiritual person. I'm an intellectual person. They identify as something else other than someone who cares about the way that they look. And so my approach is, it doesn't matter how other people perceive how you look, but it does matter if you think you're beautiful or not. And that changes the way you show up in every aspect of your life. And then people are like, oh, does that mean I'm going to be vain or egotistical? And my response to that is, actually, when you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror and you like what you see, you think about yourself so much less throughout the day than you would if you hated the way you look.
That's awesome.
And
So true.
that,
So
what,
true.
right? Isn't it so true?
Brilliant. Brilliant. I want to hang that up in my teenage girl's bedroom.
It's just the truth. And, it's just so interesting that we're getting all these messages from all these different sides where it's like, be thin, like your appearance is your worth, like all of these things. And then on the other hand, don't be egotistical. Don't love yourself too much. It's like, what do I do? Where do I even go? We're set up for failure in this area. We're never taught to really love ourselves. We don't know even how to do it. We don't even know that it's possible. So that's like one of my unique approaches. And then something that kind of evolved over time with my own healing journey, which is I was seeing so much beauty in other women, like when I was photographing them, and I was just like, wow, you're so radiant and all these different sizes and shapes. But then when I looked in the mirror, I wasn't giving myself that same love and compassion, still trying to lose weight, still trying to perfect my body. And at the same time, thinking that I was like body positive and that my weight loss journey could be a self-love journey. And it was all kind of jumbled up and mixed in there. And over time, I've become more anti-intentional weight loss, and it's a pretty radical stance in the world today, but it's something that I came to over time, and it's probably a longer conversation than just like me telling you the timeline of it all. But I realized that if I was constantly trying to change and shrink my body, control my body, then I couldn't fully embrace it and love it at the same time. And I wanted to give women that opportunity as well. Like, I was driven by wanting to help my clients with that and seeing the beauty in them. Like, you don't have to lose weight, and like, you know, taking care of your body from a place of self-love, working out and eating nutritiously and all of those things, of course, but not for weight loss, like actually for health. And so that has shifted over time a lot. And it's not that when women come to me that I'm saying you can't lose weight or you have to like let go of that desire. But one of the goals that I have with them in the program is to really shift their desire for weight loss and to focus on, you know, doing things for themselves from a place of self-love. And I find so much magic and so much freedom that comes from that. So I'd say the biggest thing that has changed in my coaching is like approaches like that and becoming more bold and unapologetic about what I believe in and not being afraid to say it. Because at first I did, even when I started believing this, I like didn't want to say it because it's so against the grain of normative culture.
I just want to step back to boudoir photography for a second
Sure.
because it's going to feed into the next question. But do you think that people come to boudoir photography because they need that boost of confidence, or because they have it and they want to show it?
The women that I work with mostly are people who do have a certain level of confidence in themselves. They probably outwardly seem very confident and have their own businesses and run households and go live on social media and all these things. No one would ever think that internally they're still looking in the mirror and clashing with their inner critic. But I would say the majority of the women that I'm working with are still struggling a bit with that internal dialogue and that narrative that they have with themselves. And when we start our journey together, then they start to see where that's actually impacting them. I'll say, okay, what are you thinking when you look in the mirror? And they'll be like, well, some days I feel good and some days I like how I look, but others I'm just like, I need to lose weight. I hate this thing. Oh, you're so lazy. You're so this, you're so that. Like these narratives that they've had forever. And they might be in therapy, they might be in coaching and like already working to, you know, love themselves more, but they're still struggling with this body image thing. And not really maybe necessarily realizing that like it actually is making this impact. So then I'll say, okay, so take me through your day. How are these thoughts impacting what you're wearing, what you're eating, how you show up at work, how you show up in your intimate relationship, how you are with your kids, in your, you know, career, in photos. Like there's so many aspects, everything. It really affects everything. And it's not something that anyone sees. It's very invisible to the untrained eye because it's a narrative that people have within them. So I'd say most of the women are there where they are confident in themselves, but they're still clashing with their inner critic. And then there are some women that I work with who, and I think it's all intertwined because this is an ever evolving journey. No one is 100% confident. No one has nothing to work on in this area. But sometimes boudoir will be a celebration of how far someone has come on their healing journey. It will be a celebration of their body or a milestone or something like that. So there are, of course, different reasons why people do it. And it also might not be specifically body image in a traditional sense, but maybe more like sexuality, you know, having those messages growing up that something about sex or sexy or sexuality is wrong or bad, and wanting to explore that side of themselves that maybe they haven't yet, and exploring it, expressing it, celebrating it. And that's a big part of my work as well.
What would you say to people who are neither confident in their body or in their career and are looking to make big changes? How would you coach someone to take that first step or get over that hump?
So I have a 4-step process for both my healing boudoir experiences and for my coaching program. And the first step is the same for both of them. And that is meet yourself where you're at. That means to do exactly that. Like, see exactly where you're at with radical honesty, but also with compassion. Because there's so much shame around this confidence thing, which I hate so much because everybody struggles with it. Like, literally, I've worked with literally over 1,000 women, and I've never met someone who doesn't have a struggle with it. But sometimes people will say, "Oh, I don't really struggle with my body image, but I don't like my nose." And I'm like, but it's the same thing. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Or there's like something specific. But for me, body image isn't just related to body size. It goes way beyond that. And it's also about self-image and just how you relate, how you talk to yourself, how you think about yourself, the boxes that you put yourself in. Am I a tomboy? Am I, maybe I'm cute, but I'm not sexy. Like, there's all these different narratives, and that all ties into body image for me and confidence. And so being like, okay, like, these are the areas that like I have evolved and healed and worked on. And these are the areas that I want to still improve. And it makes total sense. Like, it's so understandable based on, we'll go into the messages that they got growing up and their first body shaming experiences and what they internalized and what they still hold on to. And for everybody, there's something about body shaming experiences and body comments that very much stay with us. People will tell me these experiences from when they were 3-4 years old that they still remember.
Wow.
And it's not even sometimes like what someone said, but it's a look or it's a comparison or it's something. And it's very nuanced and it really hits us hard. And I think it's also because of the way that society is set up that our worth is so connected to that. But that's also how our brains work. And I want to release the shame around it because it just makes so much sense that we struggle with some area of this for ourselves. And so I think that's what the first step is really just seeing where you're at, being honest with yourself and compassionate, and making a decision on what is your ideal relationship with your body? How do you want to show up? What is that future version of yourself that you are imagining in your mind? And then believing that it's possible.
If you could go back and do one thing differently on this fairly long journey to where you are now, what would you have done differently?
My husband and I always joke, like, maybe we would have like gotten a coach before. Yeah, I think it's interesting that you said, like, do you need a coach in order to get to that next stage? And I don't necessarily think people need it, but that was definitely the way in which I stepped to my next level. And I wish that I had a bit more guidance in the beginning of our business journey because we learned so many things the hard way. And perhaps that made us much stronger as business owners and as people, and really clarified, what we do. And maybe I shouldn't even want something different. But yeah, sometimes I think maybe I would have liked to have more guidance or coaching earlier on, just not kind of flying by the seat of my pants. I mean, when we started our business, we were 21. We were so young. And things have definitely shifted so much since then.
In a good way, for sure, in a good
Yes.
way, it sounds like.
Yes.
Okay, so last question. What would you tell people who are debating about whether to get a college degree or don't want a college degree but are concerned about making it in the professional world?
I mean, I guess it really depends on what you want to do. For me, it's something that I did struggle with a little bit because of my upbringing. And it was just of course you go to college and you have this path, and it was so weird that I decided not to and move to Israel and be a photographer. And who is this person? Definitely black sheep of the family. And there were moments in the earlier stages of my career where I'm like, oh, maybe I should have gone to college, or maybe I should have done something differently. But I think, at this point, I'm so glad that I didn't. And I'm so glad that I took the path less traveled for myself. But obviously, my career is very unique and it's very creative. And I don't need it in order for me to be successful in what I do. But I think perhaps for other careers, it does make more sense. I think it's changing a lot as well. I don't know. What do you think? I'm curious.
I think that there are a lot of careers now that don't require a college degree. I'm really trying to
Yeah.
speak to a lot of those people because I think, well, I come from a family of teachers and professors, and everyone with a college degree, of course, and possibly more.
Yeah.
But I think that priorities are shifting. The cost of college is becoming extremely prohibitive. And there are ways to explore that for people who are either not studious or not committed to the process before they dump $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 on a degree, or even $50,000.
Yeah.
I think it's worth exploring.
Yeah. I mean, I think
want to tell
when I
those
think back
stories.
to like the beginning stages of our business and like struggling financially and things like that, sometimes I'm like, well, maybe it would have been helpful to have a degree at that point and maybe go get a part-time job or even a full-time job for certain periods of time. And maybe it would have made it more easier, but then maybe it would have kept me on a different path. So we don't really know. Like, I feel like Hashem's really guiding this all. Like, I'm not in control here.
That is the perfect way to put it. And thank you so much for your fascinating perspective, and good luck with all the coaching. I'll leave a link in the show notes
Thank
to your
you.
website. So in case anybody wants to
Thank
follow you on
you.
that, you can hopefully help a lot more women in the future.
We're going to have a follow-up after this because now I want to know everything about you.